Welcome to Miami-Dade, a podcast dedicated to equipping leaders to face today's challenges with courage, faith, and innovation. This series is designed for anyone wanting to grow as a leader. Each episode offers insights, strategies, and inspiration from some of Miami's most influential minds. Our goal is to help you lead with purpose, build meaningful connections, and have a lasting impact on your community. We're glad you're here, because everybody wins when a leader gets better. And now, Pastor Bill White.
Special welcome today to all those joining us for this podcast, Season 2. Very special guest for Miami Lead today. Our theme, always, everybody wins when a leader gets better. So we're glad that you're welcoming us into your leadership training as well. And happy today to be able to share with the studio audience that's gathered a special guest. JD Patterson is former director of the Miami-Dade Police Department, veteran of the United States Air Force back in the day.
Yes.
And then you also serve as a leader with 30 years in law enforcement.
Yes.
And most recently, I know you've been trying to retire, but recently overseeing public safety for all of Dade County, Chief of Preparedness, Forensics. You oversee the Department of Emergency Management, the Medical Examiner, Corrections, and Firefighters. I just feel so honored to have you on Miami Lead today and to be able to learn personally from you. So I'm wondering, would you welcome our special guest, JD Patterson?
Good afternoon. Thank you all for having me. It's an honor to be here. And wonderful introduction. You said a lot about what I've done, but at the same time, I've never really done it alone. God has always been with me, even from the time I was a little boy, as far as I'm concerned.
And that gives us great comfort today as well.
Yes.
I'm interested, you mentioned as a little boy, you've worked with first responders all of your professional career. I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about what drew you in.
Yeah, what drew me in, believe it or not, is a major event that happened here in our community called the Arthur McDuffie riots. Back in 1980, I was a 20-year-old veteran in the Air Force. And a little boy being raised in Miami and then seeing that event happen from a distance because I was in the Air Force. And being in a room very much like this, talking to a lot of people, they were talking about what was happening in Miami. And I knew that it was home for me. And I knew that, if I wanted to make a difference, I had to go back home and serve. And that's kind of like what I've been doing ever since. And that's been the impetus of it, as well as sort of like the joy of it too. Because as a leader, you said every leader is getting better when leadership, gets in place and acts. So I've always felt like I've had opportunities to lead, even as a young man staying out of trouble, if you want to call it that. I'll put it this way, trouble that I didn't get caught, okay? Because every young man, I think, or young person goes through things, trials and tribulations and challenges. And the bottom line is, do you grow from them or do you stay in them? And I've never sort of like stayed in one sort of like situation. I've always seen my life as like a stepping stone or a stair step to better. And you can only get better. As a matter of fact, my 7th grade motto.
Here we go.
at
This is a
Brownsville
leadership
Middle School,
moment. I feel it coming.
It was not at the top, but climbing. So I remember that from once I was 12 years old, not at the top, but climbing. So every opportunity is an opportunity to get the climb.
Not at the top,
Yes, but climbing. Yes.
I'm wondering if there are some young adults or 12-year-old boys paying attention today, or maybe parents who know that their children have an interest. What would be a next step for a career as you have experienced?
To just become engaged and informed and to sort of like be open to the lessons, if you will, the lessons learned from life. I just talked about an event that happened in 1980. I learned a lot of lessons from that, whether I was there or not. So if you're a youngster that's interested in public safety, there's a lot of different opportunities to serve in public safety. Corrections, fire, police, the forensics side of it in the medical examiner's office, and there are many more. Even technology, they have a technology aspect. They have a 911 operator aspect of it. There are many parts of the system. And the bottom line is if you're interested in it, it's an honorable calling, an honorable profession, and it's an opportunity to serve your community and make it better and to grow yourself.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I would encourage youngsters, if they want to do it, to get interested, to apply and to go
And
through
so
the training.
you were mentioning earlier, I mean, when we were just chatting, just go by a police station.
Yes.
Go to a fire station. Go meet somebody.
Yes, most of them have Explorer programs for young adults or teenagers, so they can get exposed to police sort of like environments as well as fire environments and corrections somewhat.
Well, it's not a field without controversy.
That's right.
And so I'm wondering if you would just tell us. We've also visited previously about your desire to do justice in a just way. And when you arm somebody and put them in a public setting, what? How do you? How do you do that? Let me just throw it out there in a broad, open-ended question. You want to be fair but not weak. You need to show up, but not too strong. How do you do that?
You do that by being realistic and humane. You can't turn off your humanity just because you are a police officer or a public safety professional. You got to understand that when you get the call, or when something unfolds, it's immediately a crisis. You wouldn't be there if it wasn't such. You come with some authority, you come with some responsibility, you come with some obligations, if you will. You want to take that tense situation and make it safer or less tense. And you have the authority to use force when it's necessary and reasonable. And you got to keep that in mind, if it's necessary and reasonable. And every time you use that two-prong approach, you're asking yourself the question, do I need to do what I'm thinking about doing? And if you can't answer it affirmatively, then you don't need to do what you're thinking about doing. Because if you're just thinking about doing it and it's not reasonable and necessary, then you may have overstepped your bounds. But if it is reasonable and necessary, I don't think anybody would ever have a problem with you doing what you need to do when you need to do it. And I'm just going to use some of these mass shooting situations that are happening. When they're happening and the police get called, the police aren't supposed to just sit back and just let it unfold because it's reasonable and necessary that something be done to stop it. And you have the authority to do that something. So you might be afraid, you might be uncertain, you might not even be so sure what you're going to do. But the bottom line is, you know it's reasonable and necessary, so now you must act. So you train people that way. You get them in that mindset
I was going to
before the scenario
Yeah, I'd like to
happens.
go ahead and step into that a little bit about training, not just what to do, when to do, but in certain diverse environments where our culture is so, we have ethnic diversity, racial diversity, cultural diversity. We come from all over the place. How do you help officers and authorized leaders to relate?
Again, it's about being open. You got to understand that Miami is a beautiful place. And not just Miami, America is a beautiful place. Got a lot of good things going on in it. And you got to be open enough to say, look, I've never been on that side of the street. Let me step on that side of the street before I have a crisis. So when you go to calls, it's like even when you go to calls, you're going to different neighborhoods. Understand that. I drove to Coral Gables this morning. I don't normally drive to Coral Gables. I normally go north. So just driving to Coral Gables is sort of like a refreshing experience for me. And even sitting here on this stage, it's a wonderful thing. So I told the officers when they're doing their jobs, experience the entire Miami. And know that you bring a certain part of Miami to the table too. And the reality is, use that to help others understand how wonderful Miami is. And if a challenge or a trial comes up, understand that you might have something that will help versus something that will hurt.
Let's talk a little bit about stress. First responders face stress of higher variety, perhaps, than most of us do in our daily lives.
Yes.
But there may be leaders in the room who would learn from the way that you have created strategies or procedures or tactics on dealing with stress in those type situations. Anything you'd like to share there?
Yeah, there's a lot that can be said for that. The stress is tremendous. It's almost unbearable. But the key is just understand that when you're going through stress, that too is a normal response. When you're in a stressful situation, you're going to be heightened. You're going to be at a certain level where things bother you. But as soon as you can get back to normal, get back there. Get back there as quickly as you can. As a matter of fact, we were taught this principle when I was in the academy. They call it anchoring, where you have to anchor before you go in. So once you anchor before you go in with less stress because you're anchored. And then once you get through it, you come back and you re-anchor, and you're better because you've done that. And anchoring basically means having a mindset that you're very, very comfortable with, a place where you can find joy and peace. It's sort of like me. I've always found peace in the church. No matter what was going on in the world and in my house and in my neighborhood, whenever I went to church, I always found a little bit of peace. And that peace is what keeps me going back because that's my anchor.
Seems like today the buzzword has to do with mental health, providing for the best mental health. But that sounds like what you're talking about, anchoring toward peace, perspective, calm.
And restoration, knowing that you just went through a tragedy, knowing that you just went through a stressful situation, and knowing that that situation does not have to carry with you throughout your life every day, all day. Not saying you're not going to go back there from time to time, because you are. But the reality is there are professionals here, there are organizations here, there are churches here, there are friends here, there's family here. All of that is important. And when you can go to those different resources and vent, if you want to call it that, break down, if you want to call it that, because, every now and then you just got to shed a tear. Every now and then you just got to realize you're overwhelmed. Every now and then you just got to realize we're living in a troubled world. I mean, think about, people tell me all the time, I don't like the news. Well, you don't have a choice. You can't ignore the news. Even if you want to ignore it, you can't ignore it. And the reality is the news is the news. How you respond to the news is what's important. So my point is, treat it as if it's something you need to know, but you don't need to sort of like emulate or just get the
Speaking
negative out of it.
of trauma and distress, the Surfside collapse happened under your watch, and you were involved in overseeing and in also providing help for those that were first responders there.
Yes, 98 families and 98 victims were lost that day, that night. And the first responders had to go there and provide, public safety services. And they also needed to be anchored. They needed to be supported as well as those families. Every day we were at Surfside, we began through the mayor with a moment of sort of like meditation and inspiration and reflection and prayer to get us focused on what we were going to do that day. And we stayed that way, stayed that course for the entire time that we were there. And we never forgot that we were there to serve those families and the community and to understand that they were lost. Some of the greatest experiences of my life came through Surfside. And some of the greatest sort of like professionals that I've ever worked with, I work with in Surfside. And they're still here. So it kind of like gives me a sense that, even the mental health of the firefighters that were working the tragedy, there was resources there from all over the country, actually, to help them too, and internationally.
It was just an unspeakable horror that many of us were praying for others in the midst of it and working with those that were doing the caregiving and the intervention, and then with grieving families along the way. Now, to back out of that, I know that was perhaps an unusual experience, but you had a usual practice that you would seek to provide for officers at the beginning of a day before they went out. I think you were talking about moments of meditation, and
Yes.
you want to bring us into that?
Actually, we talked about things like duty and honor and obligation and the sacredness of the moment. We talked about even America. The Star Spangled Banner talks about, oh, say, can we see? And it talks about a night of fighting and, that kind of thing. So my point is, when we opened up, we talked about how these families' lives were changed overnight in an instant. And that's biblical. The Bible talks about we shall all be changed in the twinkling of an eye. So the reality is your eye can twinkle and things can happen. And the key is, how do you get through it without losing it? And I think the way you get through it without losing it is understanding that, God is on your side. God is with you. So the prayer, the meditations, even though they were sometimes about things, they were always underlined with a spiritual base, always.
Well, this might be a good time. I mean, a career in law enforcement, and then when you try to leave, they won't let you. They just, hey, come back, oversee this, be an interim that. Oh, while you're here, why don't you take the mantle for this? How have you endured through the years and succeeded? You're a Miami success story.
Yeah, thank you. And that's because God has always been with me. I've never felt alone, even though I've been in circumstances where I might have momentarily felt that way. I've always felt that no matter where I find myself, God has something there for me, even if it's a lesson for me. And the bottom line is our community is a very precious resource. Life is. As a matter of fact, I've learned that when I was in the Air Force. I went shopping for some gift for some young lady I liked. And I found this document that said, life is God's gift to man. What man does with his life is his gift to God. So I think serving is a gift to God. And yes, I come out of a bunch of mess. If you heard my story, you probably wouldn't believe that I'm still here. Sometimes I find it hard to believe. But the other thing is I'm here because God wants me here. I'm doing it because God wants me to do it. He's allowing me to do it. I'm trying to retire. And I think
Maybe God isn't letting you.
No, he's not. But it's okay. He's giving me opportunities. I work with Agape. I work with the 5,000 role models. I work with a few different groups, volunteering.
Yeah.
Because if I can help, I think there's a song that says that, if I can help somebody.
Yeah, there's a beautiful song.
Yes, if I can cheer somebody with a
That's
word or a
right.
song. That's what I do. That's what I've
Then
been
my
trying
living
to do.
shall not be in vain.
That's what it's all
Amen.
about. That's right.
Amen. Well, let's lighten it up a little bit. I think lighten it up. Talk about technology. AI, how does that?
I like technology. I think technology is a tool that's supposed to make us better. I don't like it to the point where I worship it, but I do like it. And I think it's an advance that makes us better, but at the same time it has its own set of challenges too. And I'm gonna use the example of I think it's called the cameras on the school bus. It's wonderful to have a camera on a school bus to keep people from passing the school bus, but if the camera is picking up the other side of the street, and those people aren't, and it's a median in between, I think they still can go. So the technology need to be checked too. So and I think recently I heard the
So
sheriff
balance
suspended it.
technology with humanity.
Right, exactly. And with, what is the right word? There's a conscience. Technology has no conscience. We have consciences. And there's a reason why we were given consciences. So the reality is I like technology, but I don't, it's like when you get all them phone calls and it's not even a person, it's actually a recording.
Yeah,
I don't like that.
I don't either.
If you want to talk to me, talk to me.
I keep pushing buttons until I finally get a person.
Yes, yes. So don't let technology cause us to lose our humanity. Let us enhance our humanity through it.
Yeah. I think that was a guiding principle from what I picked up from our visiting together, that pretty much guided all of not only your professional career, but your personal life, to let your humanity lead. And that expression was think about another person's humanity as you're leading, and then enter into the empathy of the situation while you're trying to do the right thing. Is that close to?
Yeah, that's close. And I also think be proactive. Don't just let yourself go through things. Understand that you're a human being with feelings, and the other person's a human being with feelings. Even our situations, George Floyd, those things are going to happen. But the key is don't let those things happening cause us to want to fight each other, tooth and nail over something that we don't sort of like step back from and look at and say, hey, look, what can we do to stop it before it happens? Or what can we do to overcome it before it comes? And one of my examples is I was the police major in Northside District back in, I think, 2001, where we had an incident at a Martin Luther King Day parade where an officer shot a guy in a car. And the bottom line was it was controversial. It was very controversial. But we had meetings and we had dialogues with the community afterwards. But we also had meetings and dialogues with the community in advance. I think what helped us from blowing up was the fact that we had those meetings in advance too, and those relationships in advance. There's
Yeah.
nothing more precious than relationships with individuals and human beings and organizations too.
How, any particular situation where you just knew, I got to show up? Where now leader to leaders in the room, and then how did you show up? And what did you do to take your leadership to that level? Maybe I'm asking a question about courage.
Yeah, that is what it sounds like. And there are situations where that happens on the police department or public safety every day. And you have to stand up. Even if you don't want to stand up, you have to stand up. And sometimes as the leader of leaders, is even more important than that you stand up. I'll give you an example. I walked into a roll call one day where a sergeant was doing a roll call, and he was very upset and very animated, and he was talking about some stuff that I didn't think he should be talking about it. And rather than let him continue on, I cut him off, said, this is not the place for that. You can talk to me about this afterwards in a meeting, but you're not going to do that in front of all these people who have nothing to do with that. And I kind of like, what is the right word? I shut him up. There are times when you need to shut some people up. I hate to say that, because they may not even know what they're doing. And I think that's kind of like what it was. He was just ranting. He didn't really have an objective for his rant other than just ranting. But I wanted him to know that he was responsible for everybody in this room, and they're listening to him. And if he has nothing to say that's going to help them, then maybe he needs to just be cool and let somebody else speak who can help them, which is what I did, which is not unusual for me, by the way. It hasn't been unusual throughout my career and my life, because I had to be that way even at home. So for me, it's almost like, again, God using me wherever I'm at. And when I know it's God moving me and it's necessary, I stand up and I don't.
You mind if I just dig a little bit deeper there? How do you know it's God? When that happens, how?
He put me there. I mean, because he's given us life. I don't think a lot of things are random. We say they're random. They're not random. And I do think leadership stands up when it needs to in what appears to be a random situation.
That's
but I also
another
think God
quote
is the
I'd
one
like
that
to hold on to.
He's the one that makes you
up when
speak.
it needs to.
Yeah, and he's the one who makes you say something or do something that needs to be done. I can give you another countless examples. I've showed up on scenes where fights were going on between police and citizens. It's like, oh, wait a minute, why are we fighting? And one of them's got handcuffs on. We're not doing it that way.
Yeah.
You go over there, I'll deal with this. I'll deal with you later. So the bottom line, I guess that was God, because I could have said, you do what you want to do. I'm not going to, no, I've never done that, because I've always been sort of like, what's the right word? An intervener. And I think we call it intercessory prayer. Pray. we're interveners, all of us. Sometimes we just got to know when to intervene.
Yeah.
And for me, it's always like, and nothing's happened to me for doing this, by the way. I've never had problems, even though somebody don't like it, because somebody's not going to like it when you step in. But the bottom line is we're not here to be everybody's friend. We might even be saving you. And that's kind of how I look at it too, because, when I'm out of control, I was married for 36 years before I lost my wife. And believe me, she was really good at intervening when I needed her to intervene, which saved me a lot, and her and us, because she just had a silent way of saying, stop. And I listened and I stopped. And I was glad that I did. Maybe not right then, but later.
Thank you for sharing so transparently with us. One of the things that perhaps is unique about Miami Lead is that we always invite our guests to speak about their faith or about their spiritual journey. You've volunteered from the beginning just to take us right into that. But I'm wondering if there are any particular places or ways that you've seen your faith help you in that, in your personal life, in your professional life, whether making decisions or moral dilemmas or functioning in relationship.
My faith has helped me all the time. When I say all the time, it keeps me from losing it when I could lose it. When I have an option and I want to lose it because I know I should or I could, And I just think, Lord, I kind of like ask, Lord, how would you want me to handle it? And that's kind of like where my faith comes in as well. And then it has helped me, even like being in a setting like this. I'm not uncomfortable talking about how I believe and how I practice and how I live. And it helped me at Surfside. I mean, I didn't have to do that. The mayor kind of like put me out there to do it, and I did it. And it's helped me even in the stations I've worked in, prayer in the stations. And I don't know if you all remember this, but there was a time, an incident that happened probably about 10 or 15 years ago, where somebody was shooting in Hialeah, and I think they called out the SWAT team. And the SWAT team had to go and rescue this lady who was being held hostage by this shooter. And the SWAT team said, before we went in, we prayed. That was a SWAT team from Hialeah. And people, when I hear stuff like that,
those don't tend to make the news.
But I'm just glad he said it, that it happened. And, it happened. And the reality is, when I heard that, I thought that's what faith is all about.
Yeah.
You know, even a SWAT guy has to believe in God. And they did, and they prayed, and they went in, and they rescued the lady successfully.
Way to go.
And I think stuff like that happens every day in public safety.
If anybody may be wondering, I was privileged to meet you through our shared service on the Agape Network board. And this is a faith-based community, integrated healthcare that helps women with troubled past find their way to a brighter future for their families as well. And agape, the word means love, unconditional love, God's kind of love that creates that new hope opportunity. I wonder if, as we come to a close here, that there's what gives you hope in sharing God's love?
Well, God himself. You know, God, I think the Bible says God is love, and those who know him love. So it does great for me to try and love my fellow man, no matter who it is, no matter what color they are, no matter what religion they practice, no matter how much money they got, no matter how educated or uneducated they are. I'm going to demonstrate his love, because when I look at, Christ, that's what I see. I see his love demonstrated all the time. And I think the word talks about no greater love has any man than this, that he laid down his life for a friend. And what did our Savior do? He laid down his life for us. So law enforcement, public safety folks are really willing to lay down their lives, because it does happen. And when they go to work every day, you never know that they're going to come home. But the other side of it is, when you bring love to a situation, I told you, police only go when there's like a crisis. People don't call the police to say thank you. They call the fire department for that.
Freddie will talk to you afterwards about that.
I'm sorry. But when you get there, you have to bring, the term nowadays you hear is law and order, but it's more love. When you bring love, love brings order.
Well, I want to thank you for every day putting your life in an honorable way, in harm's way, for those who you have provided safety for, and all of those who serve under your leadership, and all of those who serve this day in all the areas that you spoke of. And thank you for bringing that type of honor to Miami-Dade County. I want to thank those joining us through the podcast today. And with that, say thank you to JD Patterson for being our guest. Could we say thank you?
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Miami Lead. Colossians 3:23 says, "Do everything as for the Lord." No matter your position, God wants you to lead in a way that honors Him. If you enjoyed the conversation, remember to follow the channel and turn on the notifications so you never miss an episode. Like to be a part of our live audience for future recordings? Head over to miamilead.org to learn more and register. We'd love to see you there. Remember, everybody wins when a leader gets better.